When Noel invited me to be here with you today, he asked me to share the journey of Calvert Foundation with you all. In particular, we come to this work of building community through the lens of impact investing. And in that vein, I am a new CEO. I came into this role, as Ruby mentioned, about 8 months ago. I had been at Calvert Foundation 5 years, so was within the organization's culture and ethos, but as often happens when new leaders come into roles, you have a moment to kind of pull your head out of the sand and evaluate the industry that you play in. Again, for us, that's impact investing. And what your role in that industry is, what your business model is, perhaps how you can do different or better. And we did that back in the fall. And in that process, what I wanted to share with you today is some observations that we saw within the impact investing field, and with those observations, how we are moving forward in our journey as an organization. And just to step back for a minute, when I talk about impact investing, for me, for the sector that Calvert Foundation plays in, what I'm sharing with you today is the idea of investing your capital, your money, to receive financial and social returns. And it is in this space that there is great opportunity, we believe, and our space believes. There is great social challenges in our communities today. So great that although there's the resources of philanthropy, government, and good corporate citizenship, it isn't enough. As we know, government budgets are declining. Philanthropy perhaps is a limited resource. And these are systemic, challenging problems. And really the promise of impact investing is bringing a new resource to the fore, a new resource to solve some of these challenges. It is investment capital. It's the $40 trillion that is invested in our capital markets, in our 401k accounts, in our banks throughout our nation, unlocking some of that money for social good. And so with that in mind, I wanted to share our journey and some of what we are seeing in the field of impact investing, in particular through our lens of an impact investing firm, organization that's been in the field 20 years, and also through the lens of a retail investor. So what Calvert Foundation does that is so unique is we connect the everyday investor, that is the retail investor, not the high net worth, we work with them too, and the accredited investor, another term for high net worth, but the everyday investor to their investments and to what they care about. So a few observations. It's legit. That's one thing we kind of found out when we pulled our head out of the sand about 6 months ago, that this field of impact investing has grown to a place where it is legit. There's many reports now that have been issued that show this field could grow to $1 trillion by 2020. There's a lot of really renowned institutions or organizations that are coming into the conversation, all the way from the White House to large corporations to large banks, such as JP Morgan, who wrote this report recently. Another trend we saw, though, when we pulled up our head out of the sand is as we are reaching this tipping point where impact investing could really be a legit, there was a lot of inequity there, we saw. Inequity in a lot of dimensions. Still, a lot of the investments or accessibility to invest in this space is for high net worth individuals. It's for endowments of foundations. There isn't a lot of on-ramps for the everyday person. We also saw that there was weak and strong markets in our nation where impact investing was gaining momentum. So for example, in New York and San Francisco, there's a lot of ecosystem, a lot of infrastructure for impact investing to flourish. In other cities in our nation, there isn't that ecosystem. And there was real challenge or real moment where we saw that some of our nation could get left behind in this tipping point. And with that observation, we really took to heart about where we fit into that solution. Another observation we saw is this is a rapidly evolving industry. Community development, microfinance are all terms that preceded or still under the intent of impact investing. But impact investing, a term that was coined perhaps 5 years ago, in the last 3 years has really taken off. It has exploded. And in that explosion, we saw for us a real opportunity to double down and do what we do best. So in many industries as they evolve, a lot of the consolidation, a lot of the niche players start to evolve, to specialize and do what they do best. In the impact investing field, as you see on the slide, there's different roles people play. There's people that raise the capital. There's organizations on the ground that deploy the capital into small businesses, into health centers, into communities around the globe. There's also organizations that are providing the infrastructure, the webbing, to keep the industry intact, ensuring proper ratings, ensuring proper collection of impact and financial data is happening to ensure that the money is being used for good financial and social good. But again, as this industry has evolved so rapidly, we saw that the pace was accelerating and that there was a moment in time that we could let go of doing everything in the field and really begin to specialize. And so that's what we have done. And so kind of switching to where we're going, and before doing that, just familiarizing you with who Calvert Foundation is a little bit more. Here we are, a slide just to kind of simply break down. Number one, Calvert Foundation is not a foundation. We are not endowed. We are actually more like a social enterprise in that we raise our capital, you see here on the left, from investors, from faith-based organizations, from institutions. We raise that capital through a financial product. It is a registered product in the financial markets. And I guess the slide didn't go forward. There we go, sorry. We raise it through 3 channels: an online channel through the financial advisors that we work with and educate about impact investing. The brokerage DTC is illustrated here on the slide, and then you can call us up and buy a note. It is that capital that we raise that we then put out into the community in the forms of loans. And you'll see here on the right different types of borrowers we have. They are CDFIs, there's social enterprises, there's funds, there's nonprofit developers. Over time, we've raised about $1 billion. We've had over 13,000 investors. We have investors that have an investment as little as $20 and as large as $20 million. And we have about 60% of our money that we're investing in the form of loans to organizations that's here in the US, and about 40% that's traveling abroad. So we're a global organization. In our history, in our very recent history, 2012, we did a pilot program. We really looked at, could you connect the power of our capital raising with what we call an identity pathway, really what people care about, whether it's an issue, whether it's a sector, whether it's a place, geography. And that pilot called Win-Win was connecting investors to the opportunity to invest in organizations that are empowering women. And we hit gold. We found, my gosh, there really is that deep latent desire in our community to do just that. Now, going forward, our new strategy is really taking that pilot and expanding across many more identity pathways, all the way from an other women's portfolio to cities here in the US, to a diaspora initiative. That's the opportunity for a US investor and to invest in their country at heritage, as well as the environment, as well as global health, and perhaps more to come. But in the near term, what we're looking at launching is a cities initiative. And that initiative is one that will actually launch here in the Twin Cities in June, as well as in Denver. And that initiative is raising capital from local investors to invest in organizations doing the deep community development work in the community, and to then connect all that ecosystem through that note, through that dialogue. And what does that look like? That looks like an opportunity for the community to really get incremental capital into solving some of those deep entrenched problems. It's an opportunity for the community to own an investment thesis, to own a narrative, to come together. And just to clarify what it's not, Calvert Foundation, I am in Washington, D.C. All my colleagues are in Washington, D.C. It's not about us bringing our brand to a community. It's not about us taking out philanthropic resources. It's about expanding the pie and elevating the people in the community's good work that's oftentimes going unnoticed. And so in that process, we're working very diligently with a lot of different partners, all the way from philanthropy to leaders in the political offices, CDFIs, developers, and then very uniquely is creative and storytelling agencies. We've worked with a group called Free Range Solutions, fabulous group out of California. And they're bringing new language, new tactics that we saw rise up in the political campaign of the first Obama election that really mobilized and motivated the small voice, the retail voice, and bringing it into the work of communities. It's very unique, very different to build that customer audience. And with that, what I'll show to you now is some of the sneak peek, some of the early work that we're starting to do in this way that will then formally launch here in the Twin Cities in June. What that looks like, a brand called Ours to Own, which this whole campaign falls under. What it looks like up in the right corner is real physical display of that brand in store windows, who are ultimately the recipients of this capital, small businesses here in the Twin Cities in the corridor between the two cities. It's an app that connects the investors, and it's Facebook pages. We also are building an online channel where you can go and purchase a note, very easy, simple way that you can go online. It's equitable, it's easy to reach, it's very accessible. And so this is really down to the deep belief that small investments can create small communities, that gathering the power of all of us as a community. So if you looked at the Twin Cities in 2 years, you'd see 10,000 investors all connected through this note, all connected into the community they care about. And that glue, that deep community engagement, that ability to be inclusive can really create outsized change.